Boy, oh boy, oh boy, we have a very special guest today. You can tell because I'm wearing one of my nicest t-shirts. Well, as you obviously noticed from the title of the video, today's special guest is Governor John Hickenlooper from Colorado. John has a long and very successful career, but it's also super diverse. A lot of people forget that he started his career as a geologist. He then went on to become a business owner. He started one of the first microbreweries in the country. He got a little frustrated the city wasn't doing a better job supporting small businesses, so he decided to run for mayor of Denver. He ended up being mayor of Denver for 2 very successful terms. He then went on to become the governor of Colorado for 2 very successful terms. And I think John will always be remembered for his ability to get bipartisan initiatives done in this state, which is not an easy feat. And at this very moment, he's involved in one of the most important Senate races in the country. The entire country is watching to see what happens in Colorado. I'm both equally excited and surprised that he agreed to be on the vlog. And with that, I hope you enjoy the conversation with John Hickenlooper. Hey, buddy, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure and an honor, and I'm sure this is going to be the finest video for entrepreneurs that I'll never watch.
Well, listen, we're not going to take a ton of time. I'm just going to ask you 3 simple questions about your leadership journey. What I'm most interested in, and I just had Jeremy Bloom on the last time, and I asked him this question first too. You've learned a lot about being a leader over the years. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what you know now that you'd go back and tell your younger self, what would it be?
I'd say don't bring your emotional problem or issue, a fight you had with your girlfriend. Don't let it come into work. And even if you're depressed, you got to fake it. Just for the first half hour, an hour, Kurt Vonnegut turned out to be a friend of my father. My father died when I was a kid. And when I was 45, I met Kurt Vonnegut by chance. And he started asking me about my dad, who, they lived in the same fraternity for 2 years in Cornell. So I learned all this stuff from him. And one of the things he said is, you've got to be very careful who you pretend to be, because that's who you become.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of when you're an entrepreneur. Once you walk in the door, you've got the optimism that you use to start the business, to bring people together, to raise the money, to go forward. That optimism has got to be there every day. And you can't come in cranky, or pretty soon other people are going to be cranky, and you'll let yourself become cranky. If you come in that front door and you put your mind in the right frame, and you just say, all right, this is going to be a kick-ass day, soon the people around you are in a positive mood. And the amazing thing, just like Vonnegut predicted, soon you end up being in a better mood.
Yeah. Oh, it's such powerful advice. I mean, I think one of the things people really miss as leaders is the fact that everybody is queuing off of their energy and their actions. Sarah used to get so mad at me because I'd come home from work at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and she'd say, "You're the boss. Like, why don't you come home earlier?" And I was like, because if I leave the office at 4 o'clock, everybody else is going to leave at 4:15, and if I stay till 8, everybody's going to watch, and they're going to work harder. So I think that's such a powerful piece of advice.
No, absolutely.
Let me ask you this. Colorado is an interesting state because it's pretty divided. It's a very liberal state in some of the metro areas. It's pretty conservative in the rural areas. You, as governor, had tremendous success kind of reaching across the aisle and building consensus in what could be easily considered a divided state. One of the things I hear from entrepreneurs all the time is, hey, we don't have consensus around a strategy. Not everybody's on board. What advice would you give to leaders if you're working in that type of environment without always just pulling the, hey, I'm the CEO, my way or the highway?
Sure, and that's always the ace that you have if you have to use it. But as you know, I think every good entrepreneur knows that's not the most effective leadership tool. Listening. I mean, I look back over my life, and I don't think I've ever persuaded someone to change their mind about something that really mattered by telling them why they're wrong and why I'm right. And I think part of that requires, if you believe that, part of that requires that you listen harder. And I learned in the bar business when I first opened Wine Coop. Wine Coop was one of the first brew pubs in the country, but it didn't mean that some of our customers didn't get pretty cranky, or angry. And I learned that when someone's really angry and yelling at you, when you really disagree, repeating back to them their exact words in a calm voice often calms them down. It validates their, their emotions and what they're feeling. And once they kind of calm down, you find yourself in a different place, because what's yelled at you is very different when you say it in a calm voice. And so you hear the other person's words in a different way. And suddenly you're actually listening to each other. And I think that part of that ability to lead organizations and enterprises is to realize that there are always going to be some people that are going to take you to task, no matter what you say or what you do, what your initiative is. But political campaigns are no different. And I think I used to talk about this thing called the Bernoulli's equation, because I was a geologist for years and studied a lot of hydrology. And Bernoulli's equation talks about the amount of work it takes to push any fluid of a given viscosity through a pipe. And one of the key variables is what they call the roughness coefficient. It's the roughness on the inside of that pipe. In an ideal world with no friction, the fluid would go through with what they call laminar flow. But every time there's a little pit or a dimple on the inside of that pipe, it creates little eddies of turbulence. And that turbulence means you need more work to push the same amount of fluid through the pipe at the same viscosity, everything else constant. So you want to address turbulence. You want to, that friction, you want to address it quickly, I think, when you're building a team around an initiative. And so those people that are, again, always going to take you to task, always going to disagree, I think you got to go to them and really listen to them and make them feel part of this, and find whatever it takes to whatever suggestion they may make, find a way to put it to use. Because then all of a sudden that bit of turbulence goes away. And all of a sudden it takes less work to get the whole initiative off the ground.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I haven't thought about Bernoulli's equation for 30 years, since I was a senior in college and took a fluids class, which I was lucky to pass. That first point is so powerful, because I think, so oftentimes when we are passionate about something and somebody on the other side is passionate in a different perspective, we're so ready to prepare our argument. And, as a CEO, what I've found is most important for people oftentimes is to understand that their opinion has been heard. They don't even necessarily expect, in a company, very different in politics, but in a company, people don't even necessarily expect they're going to get their outcome, but they want to make sure is that their perspective has been heard. So I use the exact same technique, which is, okay, let me make sure I understand what you're saying, and repeating it back. And then they know they've been heard, and I think that's a huge first step towards reducing turbulence. Yeah,
that's especially true with this next generation of workers. They feel deeply the need to be involved, and to have a voice, to be part of what they're working on. They want that mission to be something that they own.
Yeah, I think it's a great observation, and not to go too far down a rat hole, but, one of the things I'm always reminding, old guys like us is this next generation, they're not used to a monologue. They're used to a dialogue, right? We grew up and we were totally used to people talking at us, right? Companies talked at you, you listened, they advertised to you. Now in the world of social media, like, everybody expects they can engage with everybody else. And so I think that's totally true. It's a learned behavior that now, as a young person, I expect to be heard, because, that's what I'm used to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're exactly right.
So last question is, as you mentioned, you were a geologist, probably one of the first geologists to start a brewery, and then you were a successful entrepreneur. What was your kind of most important takeaway as an entrepreneur that you had to then transfer into running very large organizations at the city and then the state level? Is there one skill you really leaned on from kind of a scale perspective?
Sure, and I think, let me just first say that when I lost my job as a geologist, some 10,000 geologists got laid off in the mid-1980s because of commodity prices. And for many of us, it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to us. I was a pretty good geologist. I was 100 times better at running restaurants and redeveloping historic buildings. And I think that's true for so many people, that sometimes when you get hit over the head by fate and through no fault of your own, you lose not just your job, but let's say your whole profession goes away, which is what happened to me. 10,000 people lost their jobs. No one was hiring. You've got to recognize, and this my mom was widowed twice before she turned 40. And she told us, you can't control what life throws at you, but you can control whether it makes you a better person, whether it makes you stronger. And I think that's what we're going to go through, some periods of very difficult economic times, I think in the next 12 to 24 months. And we've got to recognize that we can bend this to our will, that we can make this series of events that many of us had nothing to do with, right? Donald Trump, his negligence and his incompetence, I know you don't want politics in this, but we've created an economic problem that's far worse than it needed to be. That's what it is. And we need to recognize that we can make this whole catastrophe, it can make us stronger as individuals, stronger as a country. And I guess, when I look at what I learned as an entrepreneur, that I could scale, it really was that sense of a team. And, in the restaurant business, the two things you learn right away is, one is it's not a question the customer's always right. Your staff is always right. You've got to serve your staff. That's the primary goal. And if you do that well enough, they'll take care of the customers. And I think the second thing you learn is that it doesn't matter when you're in rough water, everybody grabs a paddle, and your team is everything. And I would kill myself to find the right people and make sure I had the right chemistry when I was putting together my cabinet and my senior staff as a mayor, as a governor. As a mayor, I wanted diversity, and I got 50% people of color in my cabinet and senior staff when I first started. And that was a huge part of our success, because we had the right people, and they came from all different backgrounds. They had all different perspectives. They anticipated unintended consequences of our decisions or our policies. And once you get the right team together, then I think you can scale almost anything. And you have to continually be watching and seeing who's slipping a little bit, who's rising to the occasion, and kind of adjust the chemistry. It's not that different than making beer, to be honest, or building a restaurant menu. Things go better or worse, different things that surprise you. You've got to be constantly adjusting, but the core is always going to be that team of people that you've assembled.
That's right. I think one of the biggest challenges for small business owners is, founders think, look, I'll call all the shots, and at some point, pretty quickly, you realize that doesn't work, and it's all going to be about who you hire and how much you empower them.
Right, exactly. And it's funny, even when you've got the wrong people, sometimes you're in a situation where you just don't have time to change, and you've got the wrong person, and you're the one who's going to have to figure out how to make that person a star and successful. Yeah. And it's funny, I'm sure you've had the same thing. Many times I've felt that this person wasn't the right person. I wanted to make a change, and then things started moving so quickly, and that person grew into the challenge, and they actually became that star that I didn't see there initially. They had to have that chance. So it's constant engagement, constant awareness of your team and all that they can do.
Yeah, this is a tricky thing to express, but I always say to people, people can grow tremendously. They can learn new skills. I don't believe people really change who they are. So I've experienced the exact same thing, which is, hey, I'm not sure this person, is really ready for this role. But then, time slips by, you're busy with other things, and sure enough, they've grown into it, which is very different than trying to say, hey, look, I know you're fundamentally an introvert, but I need you to be an extrovert. Or I know that you're a big thinker, but I need you to be super detailed oriented. Like those don't work. But just, the realization that people do grow their skills very rapidly is super powerful. And, I think one of the keys of leadership is being able to identify those rising stars early and giving them lots of rope.
Yeah, no, it is very, very important. And partly when you have some rising stars and they start, exceeding expectations, they inspire everyone else around them.
That's
and
right.
it's, you end up creating that momentum that is the hallmark of any successful enterprise.
Yep. Yep. Hey, listen, last thing I wanted to mention, because we're talking about leadership, you and I were hanging out on a call, I guess, into last week, and we both simultaneously learned about the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg, and I think it was just a total gut punch, and everyone was kind of speechless. I'm wondering if you've had a chance to reflect on the impact she's had, and any just kind of thoughts around her role as a leader.
Sure, and I have, obviously. My wife and I spent a lot of time talking. I've been on Zooms, and the threads of her life come up everywhere. And we'd watched, several months ago, we watched the Notorious RBG, a couple of the documentaries about her life. I think what's really amazing is that all the commotion right now, which is important and relevant to the future of this country, but ultimately it's going to pale over time compared to who she was as a person and how she operated, and that legacy that she's going to leave, that this country may not be a country where all people are treated equally under the law. I don't think anyone can argue that have been successful at that. But she had that same optimism that an entrepreneur would have, and that incessant, that forward motion, that just unstoppable energy, that she was going to move this country in a better direction towards our better selves. And I think that legacy of believing in the future of this country and believing in America to be able to become that better country is just an amazingly powerful legacy. I think that's going to become so large and so powerful over time that I think she's going to end up being bigger than what many people think today. And despite all the discussions, I think she's going to go down as one of the really great heroes of our country.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's hard to comprehend how hard it was to do what she did, right? I don't know if you saw, but people were kind of remembering moments, and she shared that at some point when she was in law school, she found out that some of her classmates were referring to her as the B word, and her response was, better to be a bitch than a mouse. And she faced incredible odds. So anyway, look, my friend, I'm so grateful for you to do this. And more importantly, I'm thankful for your leadership. You've been in public service now for a long time, serving the city of Denver and the state of Colorado, and in a very short period, the United States as a senator. I am so grateful that you're doing it and not me. It's a job. When we've talked about the trials of being in politics, I can't imagine. So thank you so much for everything you do for us.
You bet, Chris. A pleasure, and keep up your good work as well.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation with the governor. I know it's easy to look at this video and say, gosh, he seems like he's humble. He seems like he's authentic, but I wonder what he's really like because he's a politician. I can assure you that is exactly who John Hickenlooper is, and I'm so thankful he agreed to be on the vlog. Now, there is this small matter of the Venture Kills t-shirt giveaway. I'm going to do a separate quick video announcing the winner of that. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you're enjoying the content overall, please subscribe to the channel. If you want to be notified when the next video is happening, just hit that little bell icon. And if you want to hear from other leaders, or you just have comments or thoughts about what you'd like to see me cover next, please add them in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.